We continue our coverage of the Israeli-Hamas war in Pretoria. SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo is outside the Israeli embassy where prayer is being held in support of the state of Israel. Let's now speak to Kaya, who's joining us from Pretoria. Kaya, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. This prayer also happening as Parliament is about to vote on Tuesday on whether or not that embassy should actually be closed down.
Well, that's right, Aldrin. I mean, obviously, we've seen a very ferocious debate in Parliament with the EFF supporting that particular position. But you do have some opposition parties as well who are very vehement in their support for Israel, but also very quite horrific scenes in Gaza. You look at one of the main healthcare facilities, Al-Shifa, that has really been under siege, where we've seen the babies really just facing hardship, with the incubators removed. But also what has been the argument from the Israeli Defense Force is that some of the healthcare facilities are used as command centers. And of course, on the other side, you do have Hamas really vehemently denying such allegations. But quite a very important occasions here in Pretoria, as those who are sympathizing with Israel, mainly and predominantly from the Christian community, are gathering here outside the Israeli embassy. So it's a very divisive issue here in South Africa. But joining us now is Mr. Modisa from the Friends of Israel here in South Africa. So, Mr. Modisa, thank you so much indeed, sir, for your time.
No, thank you, Khayelihle, and good morning.
Let's look at South Africa's position. So, for example, you have President Ramaphosa calling for the International Criminal Court to get involved. I mean, this is an issue that has been in the radar of this international court for some time, especially with the occupied territories. A lot of atrocities that have been committed prior to the 7th of October. What do you make of South Africa's position regarding this issue?
I mean, the deaths, we can't just justify them. No, even one person's life, it's worth more. And what we have seen from this conflict from the 1940s to this day is that there's been a lot of bloodshed over the years. It's important that we have leaders who can speak towards reconciliation, towards bringing people together. I think this stance by our government is basically based on the ANC policy. It is not a stance that is shared by most South Africans. We had a foreign policy against Russia, where to this day they're still killing a lot of Ukrainians. But yet our government was non-aligned. They did not want to harm their friend. So I feel like for the Christian community in this country, our government did not consider us. And we believe that if there was a Nelson Mandela in this thing, we will be able to have one person go into Tel Aviv, go into Ramallah to bring two parties together. That's what must be. That's what we must be doing as leaders, but not to choose a side, because by so doing, you are literally pushing the other side to say they don't care about us, so we will defend ourselves.
Let's look at the debate in Parliament, the EFF and some parties calling for South Africa to remove this particular diplomatic mission of Israeli government. People like you, what do you make of such positions?
I mean, it's hypocrisy. Why do we still have a Russian embassy in South Africa? Why we still have an embassy of Sudan that is killing black people? Al-Bashir was here in the country. The man who has been wanted list of the ICC, they chose to escort him out of this country. So why is it that our country and our leaders are only passionate and radical on Israel, but on many other issues across the world? This is pure hypocrisy, and we applaud the ACDP, we applaud the IFP, DA for standing against this grandstand of politics. We need unifiers, not dividers.
What about the atrocities in Gaza? I mean, the hospitals, the religious institutions, the civilians who are under siege, essentially. And what has been very controversial will have to be the collective punishment. I mean, so many countries have denounced. You look at the recent Arab Islamic countries, they've always been very firm in saying what is happening there amounts to genocide.
Khayelihle, you have 250 hostages that are held hostage in Gaza from Israel. You have 1,400 people that were killed unprovoked on the 7th of October. Hamas had one job.
I think it's been revised to 1,200.
Either way, people still died. What we are dealing with is that Hamas could have released the hostages, and this war could have been stopped a long time ago. If you can sit back as a leader and watch your people die because of you not wanting to release the hostages is very appalling. The people of Palestine, they deserve better leaders. We sympathize with the loss of life that we have seen throughout the week. I mean, children are dying, women are dying there. It's a horrific thing to see. But then to choose a political grandstand over the people that you claim to represent really doesn't look like you are in any way trying to love. You don't even love your people as much. We need to have leaders in Palestine that can say, how do we have a lasting peace with Israel? How do we negotiate? And others in the world, they can obviously choose free Palestine, free Israel. But the people in Israel today and people in Palestine are the ones who are victims in this war. And both of them are equally victims, and they need peace instantly, as if yesterday.
What will it take for this conflict to end? I mean, people are dying, the humanitarian catastrophe. I mean, you look at the scenes in Gaza, as much as Israel is saying it's part and parcel of self-defense, but you have the Arab nations and the Islamic countries saying what is happening there is untenable. So how do you show support with the bloodshed happening there?
No, I think what's important is that all the people of the world, we sympathize. Nobody loves to see people die. Nobody wants to see that. This war has broken many people's hearts, both Jews, both Israelis. People have lost their lives. I think the Arab League should rather be calling Hamas, should rather be convening and say, how do we stop Hamas from doing what they are doing in Israel? We have a movement that has tunnels under the Israeli government. Land. Not only that, they have declared genocide. They said they will kill the Jews in Israel and across the world. They are not freedom fighters. It's a genocidal movement, and that movement cannot be relied upon to be a partner for peace. People can't be dying in this manner. Whether you are pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, people can't die in this manner. You need to have a Nelson Mandela approach, the embodiment of reconciliation. But South Africans, our people, are not going to be forced to take a side. We are going to pray for peace, just like today here we are, pray for peace to prevail, but also call upon world leaders to become unifiers. This pro and pro doesn't work. At the end of the day, it is Palestinians and Israelis that have to live under bombardment from both sides.
Just before I let you go, obviously next week we'll find out from Parliament in terms of the way forward. What do you hope to see from MPs when they vote? I mean, you have those who are pretty determined that what's happening there is absolutely untenable. They're calling for the ICC to be more proactive in making sure that it's very impartial, very independent in terms of investigating what is seen as war crimes.
I think what is important is that we need to find a way around our parliament. We need to have leaders who are going to vote against this motion because they understand that both people deserve to exist side by side. Secondly, Israelis, most Jewish people in South Africa have families in Israel. Most Christians in this country travel to and from Israel every single year. And there is no apartheid in Israel. So the thing is...
What about the checkpoints? They need to present their identity documents to show their ethnicity, to show where they are from.
But those checkpoints are the people when you go into Israel. You have Arab Israelis who are members of parliament. You have Arab Israelis who have political parties, have a right to vote. So is that an apartheid setup? A checkpoint were implemented after the intifadas, where people were coming into Israel, Khayelihle, bombing themselves up. People coming into Israel, stabbing people. So the checkpoints are there for security reasons. But most people in Gaza, in the West Bank, they work in Israel. They have jobs in Israel. So therefore, to think that there is some sort, those things are there as security measures. They were not there in the early 2000s. They were not there in the early 90s, because as the war became intensive, as this war became more intensive, there had to be security measures in place to safeguard the lives of Israelis and the Palestinians. But if you have leaders who want to support the other side or the other side, what you're going to end up with is what you are seeing today. At the core of this battle is the Jewish state in the Middle East that the Arab world and Hamas specifically don't want to eradicate. So how do you live in a nation where your neighbors have tried to destroy you before, and now you have a party just on your doorstep declaring that they're going to eradicate you as Jews across the world? That's a Nazi movement, and people are supporting that. It's appalling.
Before I let you go, Mr. Modise, a very important occasion for people like yourself in your support for Israel. How important is this support for the state of Israel?
My brother, we are Christians in this country. All of us, when we pray at night, we say the God of Israel. We know the history about the Jewish people in the Holy Land. But to demand of us to say Jews were never there, they are settler, colonial, imperialist. That's not true. For you to kind of claim that Jews stole the land that they themselves have always been there and had kingdoms there, it's not true. So we stand here as Christians to say Jerusalem is our holy city. The same way you have Mecca and you have also other holy cities across the world. We cannot be forced to choose a side. Our alignment to Israel is not political. It's based on biblical truth. It is based on our faith that God has returned the inhabitants of Israel back to their homeland. And today, here they are standing, as the prophecy spoke about it. So it's not nothing new to Christians. We're expecting this for thousands of years, that one day the Jews shall return to their homeland, as the Bible, as Zechariah said, as Joel said, as Isaiah said. But we are not also whitewashing that there is a war on the ground. That war demands and it needs people who can say, I will take a flight to Tel Aviv and take a flight to Ramallah and bring these people together. But once you have ministers going to Iran, you have others making statements like Julius Malema going to attack Jewish businesses. This war somehow, it has become a proper fertile ground for those who are Nazis, who hate Jews, to push their agenda behind Palestinian support. Palestinians deserve better supporters, and those supporters are the ones who are saying Hamas must be condemned, there must be peace, Israel as well must come into the party, the Arab world, let's have lasting peaceful solution. Choosing sides and playing politics won't help the situation on the ground. It's been many years in this war, and something needs to be done.
All right, Mr. Modisa, thank you so much indeed for your time. Of course, Aldrin, he's with the Friends of Israel. In fact, the numbers really are gathering where we are positioned. So they're here once again to pledge solidarity with the state of Israel. They're very unflinching in terms of their support. But what has been very interesting as well from the Middle East, especially from the Arab world, is a total condemnation of what is currently happening in Israel, especially when you look at, some of the hospitals that have been affected. I mean, some of the main hospitals like Al-Shifa and Al-Quds as well. But what has been used as a very chief argument by the state of Israel is that Hamas is using some of these facilities as command centers, but that has been really rejected by Hamas, saying that these are just civilians who are trying to get help, who are being targeted by the Israel Defense Force. So once again, quite a very important opportunity for this particular section of South Africa, as we know that South African government has been very clear in terms of its position in condemning what was done by Hamas, the civilians who perished, but also most importantly, calling for the ICC to step in.